Uh, Trips to LA, they bring something out of people. So, commission review, and this is another one in the 70s and 80s movies that I was asked to take a look at. And now I'm going to talk about California Suite. Or, I don't know if it's actually technically part of the title, Neil Simon's California Suite. Neil Simon was best known as a playwright and most famous for The Odd Couple. And rightfully so. The Odd Couple is a fantastic play, and it's a good movie too. I never saw the TV show, but it's classic for a reason. And Neil Simon is very good at what he does, and I could see this on the whole playing better on stage, although I still would probably have my same core criticisms of it. So this is kind of a pseudo anthology kind of thing. We're dealing with 4 different sets of people as they stay in various rooms at this California hotel in Los Angeles. We have Maggie Smith, who is a British actress who is nominated for an Oscar, and it's Oscar night, and she is there with her husband, played by Michael Caine. So she's there. She is in a very lovely suite, and she wants to win, but also isn't super proud of the movie that she was nominated for. And there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with them. I'll come back to it. Then there is the divorced couple, played by Alan Alda and Jane Fonda, who are arguing over what to do with their daughter, who up to this point had been spending 10 months of the year with her mother in New York and just the summers with her father. But that daughter had left early for California without her mother knowing, and just gathered all her savings and just left. So she's there now, and the two of them are trying to figure out, well, what do we do? Because she's clearly not happy with the current arrangement. There is 2 sets of couples. I don't know the actresses who played the wives. However, the husbands are played by Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. And that basically amounts to just The Vacation from Hell. That they're on this sort of joint vacation, and we get indications that it hasn't been great up to this point, but this is the last leg of their vacation, and it just farcical levels of stuff going on. Mostly stuff going wrong in a physical sense, like car accidents and flooded hotel rooms and sprained ankles on the tennis court and stuff like that. And then finally, we have Walter Matthau, who is out there for, I think it's some relative's bar mitzvah, and his wife is supposed to be flying in to meet him. However, when he wakes up in the morning in his hotel room, he finds an empty bottle of tequila and a passed out prostitute that his brother arranged for him, and he's panicking, trying to figure out what to do before his wife gets there. So the first 2 of these that I mentioned are quite good. And they're honestly what Neil Simon is best at, I think, which is these dynamics between characters, because you really feel the weight of history between both these couples. And you find out some interesting things as it goes along. With Alda and Fonda, that is a little bit more of a straightforward, like, these 2 people clearly were correct to get divorced. They don't belong together, but they're sniping at each other in a way that doesn't seem rooted necessarily in bitterness over past issues, but more just a fundamental clash of personalities. And it's kind of demonstrated that Alda has become a very different person since moving out to California, a far more relaxed person, a far more easygoing person. He gave up smoking. He's just living a very different life from the very uptight, high-strung New York life that Jane Fonda is living. And you really get the impression through their interactions that Alda kind of found the life that fits him so much better out here. And you can see how that kind of irks her on principle. But they just have a lot of witty and well thought out and carefully constructed jabs at each other that really feel, again, built on a sense of history. Like, this is an established dynamic between these 2 people. They do a really good job. And the eventual resolution of that I quite liked as well. With Maggie Smith and Michael Caine, first of all, witty as hell. Like the two of them, especially as Maggie Smith's character. I think she actually got the Oscar for this. I know the movie was nominated for a few. Maggie Smith's character kind of goes through this emotional roller coaster. You know, we start out with them on the flight over, and the movie she's nominated for is playing on the flight, but she's like, oh God, like I've done Shakespeare. I'm known for all this stuff, and they nominated me for this fluffy comedy that I look awful in, and you can see how I'm aging. And you know, she goes from that to kind of, you could tell, getting her hopes up that maybe she might win, drinking a lot to compensate for nerves, then not winning and drinking even more to deal with the misery. And that kind of brings out some existing issues with them. The main one being that Michael Caine is gay. Possibly bisexual. It's hinted that he's been with some women other than her, but that he primarily is gay. And their relationship dynamic is interesting because this isn't brought out as like her finally confronting him about something that she's known and they haven't talked about. She clearly knows, and he doesn't really hide it. And this has kind of been their arrangement for a while. And they do get along well together, and she clearly loves him and he clearly loves her in his way, but just not the way that she wants to be loved by him. But even as alcohol kind of brings out the worst, you can tell that they do both still love each other and still want to be together in this unconventional marriage. And that's really well handled. I liked their work a lot. The other two, however, so the farcical nature of the two couples, it just never, the comedy never landed right. Now, granted, part of the problem is I had to look at Bill Cosby, which is a really difficult thing for me to do at this point. And I think that if I ever had a shot at enjoying that segment, that probably killed it. But even if it wasn't him, I don't think I would particularly enjoy this segment anyway, because you're just watching bad stuff happen to people that you don't know well enough. It's, you know, a longstanding phrase that comedy is frequently based on pain in one way or another, and especially if you're going to do a lot of physical comedy like this. But the thing is, in my opinion, if you're going to keep doing it to the same people over and over again, so it's not just a one-off visual gag where just the slapstick in and of itself is funny and the slapstick elements of this aren't great, then it needs to be funny because you know who it's happening to, and that impacts your ability to laugh at it. But I don't know these couples outside the context of them constantly fighting with each other. So they both seem kind of unpleasant by this point in their journey together. And I don't really like either one of them. And so I have nobody to root for, and I don't particularly enjoy just watching this stuff come to a head. Like, it's just not fun for me. Similarly with the Walter Matthau thing, so I get that he puts a lot of effort into making this situation and his performance and his panic around it as funny as possible. But first of all, when his wife shows up and he's trying to continue to hide this passed out woman in the bed from her, it reaches a level of farce that, again, probably plays better on stage, but in film really just seems like stretches credulity for how long this drags on, you know, the ways he's trying to distract her and redirect her attention and all this stuff. And it's cringe style comedy. And if you watch my stuff, you know I really hate cringe material. And it doesn't help that while Walter Matthau's character seems like a nice guy, I don't know him well enough to know if he is. All I really know about him is he showed up in LA. I saw him have a couple of scenes with his brother, actually played by the actor who was Stan in The Golden Girls. This is the first time I've seen him in anything other than Golden Girls. That was kind of fun. And like, he seems like a nice laid back guy, and his brother's a little bit of a sleaze. I get that impression. But I think honestly, the big mistake that this movie made was showing Walter Matthau get back to his hotel already drunk, and the hooker is there, and he doesn't tell her to leave. Because I think if it had just been a matter of him, we see him stumble back to the hotel drunk, and then we jump to the next morning and we wake up and there's this hooker there, that I could have enough wiggle room to be like, okay, maybe this is more his brother's fault. I mean, like, we do know the brother got the prostitute. We know that is what happened. But at the same time, I saw Walter Matthau go into this room, see her, clearly know what she's there for, and not ask her to leave. That does a lot to hurt any degree of sympathy, and so I don't find him trying to hide it funny, because he's a jackass. Now, that having been said, once the farcical elements of the whole thing where, like, he's trying to keep her from noticing or distracting her, or trying to get her out of the hotel room and all this other stuff, once that is over and she notices the passed out prostitute, the interactions between them I actually really like. Like, this, again, this is the stuff Neil Simon's real good at. And I actually quite like the resolution on that story. It's really adorable. And it is worth noting, since I've talked about depictions of sex workers before, it is shockingly respectful to Bunny, the prostitute. She is never blamed by any of the characters or by the narrative for what has happened. She's not, it's a leap to say treated well. Some of the things that Walter Matthau's character does while trying to conceal her presence, and treated well as an extension is like a little bit of a stretch too far. But at the same time, that is just a farcical nature of he's trying to hide a thing, and it's not, she's not dehumanized, she's not degraded, she's treated like a person, like a side character in the main story. Obviously, she's not given a highlight, but shockingly well treated, again, by both the narrative and the characters. This actually, oddly, might be one of the most respectful depictions of a sex worker I have seen in a movie, especially one where it's a side character. That was kind of a pleasant surprise. And so the way that story wraps up doesn't make up for how hard it was for me to get through the cringe of everything up to that point. It doesn't fix that, and it doesn't make it any less uncomfortable, but it does at least resolve decently. So I guess on the whole, there's two really good stories. There is like a third or maybe a quarter of a good story in the Walter Matthau one, and then there's one I just did not like at all. And so it makes it very unbalanced, and it probably doesn't help. And this kind of speaks to its origins as a play, that while there is some cutting between them, on the whole, you just get long stretches for each one where they're like, this is clearly, if this was a play, this would be the entirety of what we see between the two of them. And they've just added some extra bits, to cut in before or to come back to later. But we get such long sections, it kind of resembles Four Rooms in that way, of all things. Boy, that was a weird movie. Anyone remember Four Rooms? Probably better not. But in any case, the failure to like actually integrate these stories or bounce between them or have them climax at the same time is just four little mini arcs that you go through. It's just an awkward way for the film to be structured. Like, and I don't have an inherent problem with anthology films. They can work, but this is absolutely a story that you could have intercut between the stories more to make it more filmic. Think of the way that something like Love Actually goes between its various stories. And while if you were to cram any of them into its own section, probably only like a half hour, or less worth of story in that, but you space all of them out and intercut between them, and they fill up the whole runtime. This easily could have been that, and I think it would have benefited if it had been. But instead, it's in these blocks that I don't think flows as well. But there's definitely some good stuff here. I'll tell you what, I would be interested to see this performed. Or honestly, I could see myself, like, if community theater around here ever put this on, I could see myself auditioning for this. Like, there's the stuff that's good in here is really good. It's just not all good. So, there we go. California Suite. You seen this? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. If you haven't seen it, I don't know. What's your favorite anthology film? Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. But even if you can't help me out with that, like, share, subscribe. Those all help as well. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Quite Bearish, Zubin Litfulla, Mara G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Andre, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. And also Toka Blue Hoovian, Auntie Kate 808, and Tracy Scrabbit. If you'd like to hear me try and pronounce your name correctly while these guys chitter in my ears, check out the reward tiers on the Patreon. Yes, I hear you.